Let's talk about mind control. I've been holding back on some of the videos that I've been posting recently after a few of my videos started getting flagged and I was being let known that some of the topics that I was touching on were no-nos, but let's continue. So today I specifically wanted to talk about mind control and psychological manipulation, because these have been the tools that have been used by those in positions of power for a very long time. Because the war that we are seeing being fought on the global stage is a fight that has been in existence for millennia. It is the fight between good and evil. It is a fight on our consciousness, because history has conveniently been changed. And even if we just break it down, that word, his story, because history is written by the victors, by those who win wars and win battles. But what few people really know is that the same model, the same blueprint has been used for as far back as we can remember. Problem, reaction, solution. Because generally, the same people who come offering solutions are the same people who actually cause the problem to begin with. And they are well aware, they have studied human psychology for thousands of years, that they know exactly how human beings are going to respond. And when the same model has been used over and over again multiple times, they know by now how we are going to respond. So why am I talking about these things? Well, really to help people identify the fact that everything that is taking place on the world stage today is part of the same ancient model of problem, reaction, solution. In fact, this model has a name. It is called the Hegelian dialectic. And essentially, those who are in positions of power, and there are layers to how this pyramid of power is built. And let's just say that at the very peak of this pyramid of power, those who are running the show, those who run the show from behind the scenes and whose names are not really known, are not fully human. And some of you might think that I'm crazy for saying this, and we all know by now the theory about the reptilians. And it's actually quite interesting because I've just been reading a fascinating book by a gentleman by the name of Donald Marshall, who is a whistleblower on cloning. And it's interesting because for a long time, a lot of these very controversial topics were taboo and could not really be spoken of, because what most of humanity would question is, well, where is the proof? What are your sources? But I'm somebody who has watched and listened to hundreds of testimonials of people who have escaped from the darkest recesses of this world, because there is what we see and then there is all that is hidden from sight. And that is what is taking place at this time, is that everything that has been happening behind the scenes must come to light, because we are now on the timeline of truth. And this is what the Bible says when it talks about the book of Revelations, where all will be revealed. And this is essentially what the end days are. The end times is not that the world is ending, though those in power will have you believe that. And that is where psychological manipulation and mind control come in. Because whilst they can't control reality, what they can do is they can control our perception of reality. And so this book that I was reading was a testimonial by somebody, his first-hand account of his own experience with cloning. And it's interesting because as I've been doing research to try and understand the way the world really works, and really mind control and psychological manipulation are at the heart of the way this world really functions. Because all those in positions of power, and as I said, there are layers and levels to these positions of power, with those at the highest levels not being fully human. And the further down we go, what we have seen and what the Epstein files have really revealed to us is most human beings in positions of power are blackmailed through the dark rituals that are conducted by most elites. And these rituals that they conduct involve a lot of sacrifice, human sacrifice, specifically children, where blood is consumed and even corpses are eaten. And I've done another video on cannibalism before, but it's interesting how these same themes keep popping up. But, you know, the main difference between those of us who seek truth is that we look for the patterns rather than looking for the source. And a lot of the time it's interesting because the way academia has placed things or created things is that we need to be finding sources from written books. But it's interesting, when most of the truth is censored, it's hard to find the information, because whilst people have been sharing their own direct testimonials of the horrific things that are dominating our planet and the horrific things that have dominated our planet for thousands of years, a lot of these testimonials were scrubbed off the internet. But what is wonderful to see is that more and more victims of these heinous crimes have come out to share their story more than ever before. And previously, a lot of people were not willing or able to listen to the extremely graphic testimonials that they were sharing, because it gets really, really dark. And this is where I'm grateful that the Epstein files have come up, because this gives proof to what many conspiracy factualists have been saying for years. But just because the information that was coming out was so horrific, many people didn't want to believe it, because it sounds so preposterous that it's almost like we're in a movie. And that's where Hollywood comes in, because Hollywood really is the seat, or should I say the center, of the psychological manipulation and mind control that has been going on for eons. Now, many of you, or maybe some of you, haven't heard of the CIA project called MK Ultra. We were told that this project was discontinued in the 60s, but there is a lot of proof to show that this project actually continued underground. And the CIA project MK Ultra was actually a continuation of the work that was begun by the Nazis in Germany, because what few people know is that many of the high-level Nazi officers who actually fled Germany after the Second World War and moved to America, and this move was actually known as Operation Paperclip, where a lot of these scientists were taken to America to continue their research. And we know that people like Joseph Mengele were involved in some of the most horrific medical research and tests and what they were doing. And we know that the Nazis were very much involved in something called eugenics. And eugenics essentially is genetic manipulation. It is what is coming up in the Epstein files as designer babies, where even in medical research with things such as CRISPR, which is about gene editing, this all comes back into cloning. And what's interesting is that Clonaid, which was started in about 1997, was actually influenced by a cult or religious movement called the Raelian movement. And this Raelian movement, interestingly enough, their symbolism is the swastika and the Star of David. And the guy who started this movement said that he was visited by some interdimensional beings called the Elohim, who claimed that they had genetically engineered the human race and that they had even used their own DNA in creating the human race. And that Clonaid was started as a means to clone human beings so that the consciousness of these non-human beings could essentially be housed in cloned human bodies. So just think about that for a while, and you can go and do all of this research, because all of this information I found simply just looking through Google and YouTube. And so not all is as it seems, but we have been programmed to look at the world in a very specific way, and every single system that exists in our world today has been there to force us, to program us to look at the world in a specific way. Anyways, this video is coming to an end. Let me know what you think about this and if I should do a part 2. Or let me know what it is that you want to know. It's sometimes easier when you ask me questions and I respond to them.